at 11:30 Sky Sports 2.
You're watching Sky Sports.
With Honda supplying all the IndyCar horsepower, it's appropriate that round 3 of the 2008 IndyCar Series takes place on one of the few oval tracks outside America. We're in Japan for a 200 miles per hour encounter, with Britain's Dan Wheldon a past double winner here, but he'll have to fight off the likes of Helio Castroneves, Scott Dixon and Tony Kanaan if he's to score his first win of the season. It's action all the way in the Japan Indy 300 on the twin ring Motegi track. Hello everyone, as you may know, yesterday's race didn't happen because of a problem with water seeping up through the track. The whole weekend has been dogged by difficult weather, but they did finally get the race away earlier today. So let's join our commentators Scott Goodyear and Marty Reid as the cars line up on the grid.
Start your engine.
An overcast day, but at least the rains have subsided and the racers now getting ready. The drivers getting a chance to get their engines going and looking forward to this one. The third of 16 events in the 2008 IndyCar Series season. This is the 6th IndyCar Series event at Twin Ring Motegi. Tony Kanaan is the defending race winner. Dan Wheldon's had the best qualifying record with a lap of 26.5938 seconds. He went over 205 miles per hour back in April of 2004. The IndyCar Series point standings at this point: Helio Castroneves is on top, followed by Scott Dixon, Tony Kanaan, Dan Wheldon, Marco Andretti, Danica Patrick, Ed Carpenter 10th. So 4 Americans in the top 10. A couple Brazilians among the top 3. So that's where we stand after 2 races. And there's a look wide of the oval, a different look, and it will impact the way drivers set up their cars. Not your standard oval that you normally see. Here's a look at the starting grid for this race. Helio Castroneves in car number 3. He's the pole sitter. Scott Dixon in row 1 with him. Then in row 2, Tony Kanaan, Marco Andretti in car number 26. In row 3, Dan Wheldon, as I mentioned, had the best speed here at over 205 miles per hour back in 2004. Danica Patrick joins him in position number 6. In row 4, it's Ed Carpenter in car number 20. AJ Foyt the 4th. Row 5, local favorite Hideki Muto, along with Ryan Hunter-Reay. On to row 6 in the 11th position, it's Buddy Rice and Darren Manning. Row 7, Vito Mira will be starting next to Jay Howard, the rookie. Ryan Briscoe and Townsend Bell in row 8, positions 15 and 16. And Marty Roth in row number 9, along with Roger Yasukawa in car number 77. That's the starting grid. As it's the first time they go by the finish line, will go green on the 4th time around. Recently, South America's been dominating this race. Tony Kanaan, Helio Castroneves have been able to fly the Brazilian flag at Japan. This year, though, local fans have put their hopes on Hideki Muto, so they are out in great numbers, hoping for the best in the Indy Japan 300. Turn 4 was where all the water was yesterday, and that caused a 2-hour delay with all that water percolating up onto the track. And as we mentioned, they pumped out 10,000 gallons. Here's the IndyCar Series keys to the race here for the Indy Japan 300. The car setup is huge because of the oval shape. It's a little wider at one end, not a standard oval. So the drivers will have to make choices as to how to set up their cars to deal with that extra cornering. Different kind of a cornering. The strategy in the pits is huge, of course. Between 50 and 55 laps is about when you'll have to refuel, or will you wait for a yellow to do that? And the green track, that's the major concern for the drivers, because all the rubber that was laid down has been wiped out basically by all the rain. So you just don't know what kind of grip, what kind of help you're going to get around some of these corners for these drivers. And right now I'm sure they're figuring out what they're going to need to do. So row 1, the pole sitter is Castroneves. He has been having a great year so far, just 2 races. 3 Indianapolis 500 winners are entered in this. Danny Wilden, who won in 2005, Buddy Rice, who won in 2004. This is a 2.4 kilometer track, so about a mile and a half, 200 laps. And we mentioned that pit window, 50 to 55 laps. One more lap to the green. The pole sitter, Castroneves, has done it 23 times. He has been the pole sitter.
They sucked all of that water out. Then they resealed those holes this morning. I personally went up and inspected.
So 200 laps around Motegi Twin Ring coming up. Motegi Twin Ring, one of the great racetracks in Japan, setting to host this race, the Indy Japan 300. Now we send you to location where Marty Reed and Scott Goodyear are standing by.
It's going to be crucial to take this start. And what should we watch for in tonight's race? Well, weather, we've talked about the rain, track conditions will be changing. We'll talk about that throughout the race. Car consistency, we've talked about different ends of the racetrack are very different as far as the car setup is concerned. And race strategy, we're going to talk about that as the race continues also.
And as they come out of turn number 4, we're getting ready to go green. The pace car pulls in. They come out of 4 down the front straightaway, and we are green at Motegi. Oh, and again, just like last year, we have a car spinning into the wall, and it is Marco Andretti. So the cold tires that got Koski Matsuura last year bites Marco Andretti, and he is out of his 2nd straight race.
A long ways to go to try and take the green flag and have this happen. And the worst thing about it is, Marty, 13, 14 hours of flight time coming home to think about what you did wrong or what happened going into the turn. Now, we'll try and get a replay and understand exactly what happened with this. And he's staying in the car hoping that maybe he might get this fixed and get a few laps and get going. And here you see the frustration of him taking the padding out now from around him and hits the steering wheel. And now he decides to climb out. And it could have been cold tires. We're going to replay and have a look at this. Remember, we started to say about the ambient temperature is only 59 degrees, and these tires and the cars are really built for something in the mid-70s, something along that. And we did see the drivers starting to smoke their tires up just on the pace laps as we start to watch the replay here. And you can see Marco Andretti is already at the top of your screen. The back end starting to go around on him means the car is loose. He was by himself, does not look like he was touched. And the cars in front were quite a ways away from him, so we can't really put that down to some disturbed air. Now we can see that the car just starts to come around on him. The front hits the wall, and there definitely is too much damage there for that car to continue just on its own without some repair.
On board with Danica, and there you see Marco twitches. Boy, this is so similar to what happened to Koski Matsuura last year.
Well, Marty, the guys have not been on the track for the last couple of days. Any rubber that was on the track has been washed away because of the rain, and because of that situation, they really don't know what the car setup is going to be, and we talked about that taking the green flag here.
We are in lap 7 of the 200 so far at the Indy Japan 300. Again, this is the 3rd of 16 events in 2008 in the IndyCar Series season. And we're set now to send you back to Japan. Marty Reed and Scott Goodyear.
At Twin Ring, Motegi on the backstretch getting ready to go green. We can tell you it was Ryan Briscoe that did pit, as did Townsend Bell and Roger Yasukawa. So they were at the 3 cars at the back of the field. They've got 4 laps in hand on fuel. They're still at the back of the field, 15th, 16th, and 17th. Helio Castroneves leads them down the front stretch. And here we go, back to green flag racing on lap 7. See the sparks. There's a couple of bumps through turn 1 and 2 on full tanks. You'll see that throughout the race. Behind Castroneves, it's Dixon right there in the 9 car. Tony Kanaan on the high side in the 7-Eleven. You're on board with Tony. Taking a look on the inside, here comes Dan Weldon going underneath. Remember, Weldon dominated this race last year, and he's won here twice. Meanwhile, Tony Kanaan's falling back towards his teammate. Now remember, we talked a little earlier when we were on the pace laps and we saw him smoking right there. You thought he was like warming up brakes, Jack, so let's find out what's going on.
Well, Marty, it was indeed the brakes getting fitted in, but what's interesting is you saw that the Target Chip Ganassi cars who dispatched Tony Kanaan, they were very smart. They saw the smoke as well, and they warned Dan Weldon that TK might have a slight brake issue. I checked with his people, and he told us that it was okay that the brakes had seated. Meanwhile, Marco Andretti has now come out of the infield care center after a quick checkup. We'll see if we can get a quick word with him here. Marco, shades of Coach K. Matsura 1 year ago. What happened to you in the car?
It's embarrassing. That's cold tires is when you're supposed to take advantage of the other guys, you know, and it just caught me out. I mean, it just snapped loose, the cold temperatures, but you can't blame it on that. It was a driver error for sure, and again, can't be more disappointed for the Alpine boys. Sorry.
Thanks, Mark.
Marco Andretti, the
Fellas.
second. Go ahead, Jack. Go ahead. All right, we'll come back to Jack a little bit later. Now down the backstretch, Helio Castroneves leading now the 4th race here at Motegi in the 6 that have been held where he has led in the event.
He seems to have a pretty happy race car underneath him right now. He doesn't seem to have to use up too much road. He seems like he's able to turn the car, keep the speed up mid-turn, which is what you always watch for. That tells you if the car is working well for you or not. Remember, turns 1 and 2 are flat out where we just went through now, and as we ride on board, coming down to turns 3 and 4, 2 quick downshifts. Let's have a listen. 6 down to 4th and usually back up to the 5th and 6th gear.
And we go back to the battle for 10th right now because that's the closest action we have on the track. You're on board with Hideki Muto. Muto just got passed by Darren Manning, and here he comes back underneath. This is for 10th place. Remember, this is Muto's like Indy 500. He is Japanese native, and the fans have been flocking to him all week long.
And he was smart because he tucked right in behind Darren Manning. Once he got past, took advantage of the draft and just dove back down on the inside. A very smart move for the rookie.
Working lap 15 of 200. Nothing has changed up front. There you see Ryan Briscoe. He is going around Jay Howard. So Briscoe will take over 13th position. You're saying, well, why is the 6 car all the way back there? Remember, he was back in 15th position because of points at the start. And then he also took the extra load of fuel. Let's get more from Jack.
And fellas, that extra load of fuel could be critical for the cars like Ryan Briscoe. Now remember, Ryan Briscoe was quick in the single practice, but because this race started on points, he was relegated to the rear of the field, running a very similar setup to your leader, Helio Castroneves, as part of the Team Penske juggernaut. It was another move by Penske to try and take his team off of schedule, at least one car. We've seen him do it so many times, and in the past, the man that comes in with the best fuel consumption strategy is the one that goes to victory lane. Remember, remember that you can make, on an average, 3 miles to a gallon under green, and you triple that under yellow. So now he's got some valuable fuel.
Well, and Briscoe, as he's looking underneath Townsend Bell, also got some ground gained. He was moved up to 12th there after restarting 16th, but now he has been punched back to 13th as Briscoe gets around him. Now remember, for the beginning of the season, it has not been too kind to Ryan Briscoe. One accident was not his fault. If you remember back at the beginning of the season, that's Milka Duno, and Milka collects the 6 car and puts Briscoe out of the race. But 2 weeks ago at St. Petersburg, this was his fault.
Just caught the inside wall with the right corner of the car, and I just threw him to the outside of the track here at St. Petersburg on a narrow street circuit like we'll be racing tomorrow in Long Beach. There's no room for error.
The biggest thing that Ryan Briscoe needs to do is finish this race. He is the only driver to crash out of the first 2, and as we said, the first one not his fault. Coming up now on the 15 car of Buddy Rice, and Buddy, a proud new papa. If you were with us last night, you know it was April 9th that their daughter Mina was born to wife Michelle, and we wish them well. And you're on board with Buddy right now.
He's battling right now for position between Rice, and this is a situation for Ryan Briscoe as we now see the 3 car, the leading car of Penske's machine with Helio Castroneves. And Briscoe, when I spoke to him before, he said, you know something, I just need to get points. As you mentioned, Marty, there's a lot of pressure on a new driver when he comes to a team, and especially when you arrive at a team like Team Penske, to do well. He doesn't hire drivers that don't finish racers. He doesn't hire drivers that don't finish well, and you can rest assured that that is something that's been on Ryan Briscoe's mind over the first 2 races running for the Penske IndyCar team.
His teammate right now, Helio Castroneves, has over a half a second lead over Scott Dixon. Dan Weldon is 3rd. Tony Kanaan 4th. Danica Patrick rounds out your top 5 here in Japan.
So at lap 22 of the 200, Helio Castroneves has the lead. He was the pole sitter to start. We've lost Marco Andretti in the very first couple of laps. Ryan Briscoe had some difficulties. He's still hanging in, though. Was able to save some fuel. Went to an early pit stop. Had 4 laps of fuel in hand with that move. Only 3 miles per gallon under the green for these cars, so conserving and consuming fuel, that whole strategy is so key to winning in these races. And car consistency, very big as well. The 3rd race of the 2008 series you're watching from Japan. Motegi Twin Ring. Local favorite Hideki Muto is having something of a homecoming here. It's his first Motegi start. He did finish 6th in St. Petersburg, and Muto right now is running 9th in the race, right behind AJ Foyt, the 4th. Muto did not finish in Homestead, the first race of the IndyCar series, and then a 6th at St. Petersburg. Here he is running 9th and hoping to make something happen. Lap 25 of the 200 as we send you back to Japan. Marty Reed and Scott Goodyear.
ESPN's presentation of the Firestone IndyCar 300 at Japan, brought to you by Firestone, the first name in Indy racing, and by ethanol. Blossoms on the trees as spring has sprung, even in Japan. And there you see the race leader and 2nd and 3rd. It's Helio Castroneves in front of the 2 Target Ganassi racing machines of Scott Dixon, our winner back at Homestead, and of course Dan Weldon, a 2-time winner here at Twin Ring Motegi, as we're working lap 28 of 200. Let's get a little more on the Ganassi teammates from Jackaroo.
Fellas, you remember I said at the start of the race the concern was for the green racetrack. And basically, AGR decided to twist a little additional downforce into their cars. When I checked with Target Chip Ganassi and I reconfirmed with them, They elected to go with the same setup that they practiced with on Thursday. What that means is there is not as much downforce on those two cars. According to Mark Hull, he said the problem is when you add too much downforce here, it creates so much drag that you slow down. So right now, the two cars that are hunting down Helio Castroneves have just a tad less downforce than most of the other cars out on the racetrack.
And Jack, that's some great information, because the other thing that happens when you add downforce to the race car, and it gives it drag and slows it down, but it also will end up using more fuel. As we're watching both the Target Chip Ganassi cars, it looks like they're able to run up on the back of Helio Castroneves, but maybe just can't get close enough to take a run at him. But as the track changes here, and we talked about the weather and how the track will change once the rubber starts to get put down and the car starts to get some more grip because the track is rubbering in, maybe that's an opportunity for the Target Chip Ganassi cars, or any cars that don't have as much downforce as maybe they would like right now, will work better for them as the track becomes better for the grip level. As we see the 20 car of Ed Carpenter starting to come in, and that's probably just a little bit early, Marty.
I'm going to be interesting to see what happens here as far as if this was a planned stop for Ed Carpenter, as all of a sudden he is into pit lane. Jack?
Guys, it was indeed a planned stop, but it was a conservatively planned stop. The idea being to get out of sequence just a little bit. I had talked to Larry Curry about that fact. He said if we're one of the first cars to pit, we can rotate our way through and possibly gain a couple of spots. Keep in mind, the conventional wisdom is this will take about 3.5 stops. Meanwhile, Danica Patrick has pulled onto pit road, and they are going to go to work there. No major changes except for tire pressure to try and adjust that push condition. Helio Castroneves is set as well, and a caution comes out. There's a car in the wall.
So the pits are now closed, so anybody coming down, unless they are low on fuel, will have to do a pass through, and the caution out for the second time. Looks like somebody got crashed with the front. So we are told that Tony Kanaan and AJ Foyt IV will have to do the pass through, and that is going to hurt them on this sequence. And there is the reason. It is Hideki Muto that gets refired and back out here on lap 49. I was a little surprised to see how early, and you see the damage on the left front wing on Muto's car. I was a little surprised that they weren't able to go to lap 49 or 50 before we started seeing pit stops.
Well, especially when we had a couple of laps under caution at the very beginning, but the conservativeness of bringing Ed Carpenter in, maybe you get a chance to check your fuel mileage, make sure everything is what you think it is. Remember, not a whole lot of running as we see the 10 car, the Target Chip Ganassi car of Dan Weldon doing some stopping here already, but you know, you don't want to run out of fuel, that's for sure.
Jack, what was the story on the 10 car?
Running out of fuel, needed a splash and go. Meantime, Scott Dixon finds himself in a similar position as teammate. The reason he didn't pit along with Dan Weldon, he missed the pit in.
Well, that may end up being a blessing in disguise.
Well, with splash and go, let's explain this for a second. By IRL rules, that if you are running out of fuel or if you have a flat with one of your tires, even though the pit lane is closed, you are able to come into the pit lane and take on fuel so you don't run out of fuel on the track, or you're able to come in and change the tire and make sure that you can get back on the racetrack. But you still have to come back in and do a complete stop.
And Scott Dixon is now in. Let's send it to Jack Arute. And he's only getting a splash, Jack.
The precious fuel the precious fuel that Scott Dixon needed has gone into that 22-gallon tank, and he'll be able to go out until the pits are open. Helio Castroneves was supposed to come in, guys, right about now. Your leader's going to have to be concerned a little bit about fuel as well very shortly.
And now we see the other reason that we had the contact. It wasn't just Hideki Muto. It looks like he and Marty Roth may have gotten together. And we haven't seen a replay on this from our host broadcasters over in Japan. We'll see if we can dial that one up. Here we go.
Well, this is actually some action that's going on during...
Wow.
Oh, there you go. That is actually after they come in through the stop and they're about ready to leave. And then you pass the timeline, which they did. And you know what ends up happening is that when you have your foot on the gas as a rookie, sometimes you got your foot too far down on the gas and trying to make sure you get a good jump as soon as your speed limiter control comes off, which is right now. And when you do that, the speed limiter control comes off, your foot's almost all the way down as we watch Elio Castroneves do a great pit stop. And the switch, almost like turning a light switch on, Marty, is that you get 650 horsepower at the rear wheels and you spin the tires, and that's exactly what happened with Muto.
Well, as you can see, the pits are now open and everybody came in. Elio Castroneves. Jack, give us an update on what transpired.
Well, the major change that was made, we had talked about just before the caution came down. Tim Cindric and the Elio Castroneves crew decided to take a half turn of wing out of the left front. Elio likes his car very nicely, but again, as we said, when you start to fine-tune things, but what is interesting, again, you've got to keep a lot of close attention to the number of laps that are run under caution here today. We are at lap 50, and if you can get enough caution laps here, because you can build so much fuel. Remember the cars that pitted early? Well, Ryan Briscoe is one of the cars that decided to take advantage of this caution. He's back in sequence with everyone else.
Yes, and you saw Dan Weldon was listed as the leader momentarily, but he came back into the pits. It is Castroneves, and Ryan Briscoe is the big winner in this deal. Remember, he started 15th. He has now moved up to second position. Dixon is third. Weldon is fourth. Tony Kanaan is fifth. How will all this play out? We're just a quarter of the way through at the Firestone IndyCar 300.
"78 laps of the 200 now in the books, and our pole sitter Castroneves still with the lead. Order's been restored to some extent. Scott Dixon, who started in the second position in row 1, car number 9, and he's trailing Castroneves by just about a quarter of a second, a couple seconds back. It's Dan Weldon, who started in row 3, position number 5. He is third behind Scott Dixon, and then Tony Kanaan, who is in row 2 to start with, now fourth. He's a little over 3 seconds behind, averaging just over 194 miles per hour at this point. But it is Castroneves with the lead, and he making his 100th IndyCar Series start. Was a winner here in 2006. He led that time around 186 of the 200 laps. And again, he's the pole sitter here at Montegi. There have been 5 other races at Montegi over the years, and 4 different winners. Castroneves won it in 06, Tony Kanaan in 07, Weldon in 04. The fewest leaders at Montegi, that was 4 in the year 2004. So we send you back as we get to 81 laps. Here's Marty Reed and Scott Goodyear in Japan.
At Twin Ring Motegi, the battle for the lead is getting a little closer now. Take a look at the 9 car of Scott Dixon, our winner at Homestead, Miami. He's closing down on Elio Castroneves. Our Firestone lap leader has led all 81 laps so far today. It's been a dominant performance for Elio, but here comes Dixon. Looks like he may have something for him.
And that last time through, I'm sure I saw Dixon's car take a wiggle coming off of turn 3 going into 4 up towards the wall. Now he seems to distance himself just a little bit further from Elio's car up in front. Remember, we talked about this consistency at both ends of the racetrack. Turns 1 and 2, where you see the cars going through now, is wide open, flat on the gas, 205, 208 miles an hour. As you get down the backstretch here, as they're traveling along here, still over 200 miles an hour, but this is the turn where you're down 2 gears, 6 down to 5th, down to 4th sometimes, back on the gas. It's a tight turn. It's a tight end of the egg-shaped track, as we talked about, and Dixon will be making some in-car adjustments right now with his weight jacker and roll bar adjustments to try to get that car to work just a little bit happier when it gets up to the disturbed air coming off Elio's car up in front.
Why don't we go for a ride, watch out the back of Elio's car, and just listen to the difference as we go around this Twin Ring Motegi 1.5 miles. Here we go.
You're in 3 and 4 off the gas, back on now down the front stretch. none whatsoever. Now let's head down to turn 3. Drivers, Marty, earn their money because you want to keep the car going as quickly as possible through the center of the turn. And if the car handles well, you don't scrub off speed, you don't have to turn the steering wheel too much, which really scrubs the speed off in the turn. And that's what you want to do. But you have to have consistency lap after lap over the fuel run.
And since that wiggle, Elio has opened up a bigger lead. It's now half a second, Jackaroot.
Fellas, remember when the race started, the wind was running from turn 1 directly down the backstretch. That's the way all of the wind here. Not as gusty as yesterday. Well, now the wind is shifted 90 degrees. It is running from the backstretch right into the face of the crowd here on the main grandstand. For Elio Castroneves, that has changed the handling of the car. And what they are discussing right now is what they will do in terms of little changes to compensate for that. He has already made several changes with the onboard weight jacker, but look for some wing adjustments on Elio Castroneves, your leader, when they pit next, which could be in 18 to 20 laps.
Well, Jack, that's some great information, because what that does, instead of giving you a tailwind into the turn, now you're turning into turn 1 and the car's working not badly, but as you enter into 2, the air comes across the front and maybe can make the back of the car just a little bit loose because you get that wind going over the front wings. Conversely, what ends up happening is you get through 3 going into 4, that wind catches the side of the car and pushes the car up the racetrack, going up towards turn 4, out towards the wall. And remember, that's the tightest end of the racetrack, and maybe the track changing now and the wind changing, maybe that's the reason why we saw the back end of Scott Dixon's car take a bit of a wiggle.
Elio Castroneves now has got a total of 89 laps led, soon to be 90, and that'll be 94 for the year. And that gives him the lap lead total for the season. Remember, Marco Andretti led 85 back at our first race at Homestead, Miami. Now let's go back a little further, and you can see that we've got some action brewing. That's Danica Patrick in 8th. Townsend Bell right in front of her in the 23 car is 7th place, and Ed Carpenter just outside of that picture to your right. You're on board with Danica. Let's get more from Jackaroot.
Patrick has been battling an understeer problem. They tried to correct it with a tire pressure change. They're afraid to make a wing change. Why? Because as much as the car is understeering in the middle and out of the corner, it's just a tad loose going into the corner. During this next pit stop, they will try to chip away at that as well. And now the yellow comes out, guys.
And we're getting word that Vitor Meira may have just had some contact with the wall. And we have our third caution here on lap 92 of 200. So we're hearing that Vitor, we don't know exactly how much damage. We'll see if our host broadcasters from Japan can give us a view of exactly what happened. There is the National Guard Delphi machine. Looks like it's still none the worse for wear. Of course, we haven't seen the right side yet.
Well, if that is the case, remember Vitor last year crashed in practice about 3 or 4 laps into the first day of practice, and they ended up having to go to the backup car and then ended up having a vehicle that was not very happy in the race, and they turned around and parked it because of handling issues.
And that was on lap 65. Let's get more from Jackaroot.
You got to forgive Vitor and the Delphi National Guard crew if they don't like coming to Japan. Yesterday, on top of all that you've related, as they were putting their car through the final warm-up before putting it on the grid, they noticed that the fuel pump was leaking a little bit. They started to rev the engine, and that fuel pump started to pump out the fuel into the cockpit, not the cockpit, but the engine compartment of the car. They almost missed the command to start engines if it had gone off on time, because they were back in the pits changing the fuel pump. But because of the weepers, they were able to make the change, and you see them hard at work while the rest of the grid is being introduced. So if the Panther team wants to maybe forego this next season, no one would blame them. The pits are open, fellas. Look for feeding time at the zoo here in Japan.
Yeah, it's been 42 laps since our leaders have stopped, and that video, of course, was yesterday, and they were the only team that was happy to see the mess that we had in turn 4 with the Weepers. We do expect everybody to make a stop here. So far, we still haven't seen anybody be able to stretch that fuel window, and we're almost to the halfway mark of the race. And here comes everybody down pit lane. Pretty much everybody. There's about 3-4 cars, and one of them looked like it messed it. Whoa!
That was Vitor.
That was Vitor. And let's check in with Jackaroo once again.
Elio Castroneves leads the field down. They will make an adjustment. This time, watch Rick Reineman. He has trouble getting the right front off. Instead, the left front tire changer makes the change. They adjust the right front wing this time. Meanwhile, a wing adjustment on the number 10, their third place car before this pit stop, as the Target Chip Ganassi team continues to try and chase down Elio Castroneves.
And Jack, I know you're all alone there, and we noticed from our vantage point on the screen that the 20 car, yes, they're just getting underway. The motor was killed, and what a bad break for Ed Carpenter. He was running in the 8th position when they came in. Jack, you've got more on that?
Remember at the beginning of the day we said that Larry Curry told me that anything less than a 5th place, or a 3rd place or better podium finish was going to be a failed trip to Japan? Well, that's just another installment. I checked with Larry and asked him about the run of Ed Carpenter before that miscue on pit road. He said, we're running as fast as the leaders, but we just can't get a break. So bad luck is affecting him. I asked Tony George about the run of the car that he is the tactician for, AJ Foyt IV, and he gave me that universal signal where you hold your nose, and it basically says in any language, we just stink today.
Well, and we see here on the replay, Jack, exactly what happened. It was AJ Foyt IV coming out the very time Ed was coming in.
And you have to say they are teammate cars, and they know they're obviously parked one next to each other, so there's just no room for error when it's your team car like that has that situation. It's just a lack of communication between the two teams of what's going on here. On the left-hand side, you see the white and silver car of AJ Foyt IV trying to actually depart his pit box, and then the yellow car that we're on board with right now of Ed Carpenter in the Menards car just trying to come in. Now, Ed is not in fault of that. It's actually the team for AJ Foyt IV releasing him, knowing that obviously their teammate car is coming in the pit box for service.
And Ed is coming back in to get that tire perhaps checked one more time. We can tell you also our scoring monitor shows Vitor Meira now out of the race. We'll confirm that to be sure. Remember, he had brushed the wall, so obviously there may be a little more damage than we anticipated originally. And they're going to top it off. And yes, they're checking the suspension pieces on the rear. And we'll find out if they send him back out. They're saying okay. Now remember, we're under caution here.
Fellas, what they're doing now is they just want to make sure that all the suspension parts are good. And Ed Carpenter is talking to Larry Curry. He's a little uneasy, but he wants to persevere and continue on. Back to you.
All right, great, Jack. You are doing a great job. You're all alone out there. We have a total of 12 cars on the lead lap, so Ed will fall back to the 12th position, but at least he stays on that lead position lap. That is your top 9 cars in your screen right there, all the way back to Ryan Hunter-Reay in 9th. So Danica picks up 1 spot, everybody else pretty much in station, and now it looks like she's got Briscoe in her sights and she's going underneath.
A nice move, a nice timing coming off of turns 3 and 4. Got a draft off of Briscoe, timed her right and just dove down the inside, didn't give him any chance to be able to move down and take the line. Now Darren Manning's going to have a look.
Well, the one thing that's impressive here, remember Danica normally on the restarts, she's not as aggressive as the run progresses. She gets better. The car comes in better for her. But right now, she, as we hit the halfway mark of this race, picks up 2 spots.
Well, when we listened to her on board before, she was very tentative going into the turns, and she was off the gas a lot when she was traveling behind the cars in front. And now they must have made some changes during that pit stop because she's very confident of her race car now.
And pulling away from those two cars. Meanwhile, Jack Arute is caught up with a disappointed Vitor Meira.
Let's find out exactly what happened. Vitor, what happened out there to you?
Howard was coming out of the pits and he obviously went inside. And we were having brake problems. The thing was long. As soon as he came to the track, I tried to stop a little bit with brake. It just went long and I couldn't stop. It's a shame because the Delphi National Guard car was getting much better as the run went by. And now we can't do anything else anymore.
Guys?
All right, thanks, Jack. Now, he mentioned Howard. That's Jay Howard, who was a lap traffic. But talk to people about long pedal in case they don't know what he's talking about.
What ends up happening is that it's just like the pedal in your car when you drive to work in the morning, that when you put your foot on the pedal, there's a lot of resistance there. There's a lot of pressure there. Well, if you have a problem with your brake here on a race car or on a road car, it's a long pedal, which means it goes all the way down to the floorboard, and there's a problem with the braking system. That's exactly the problem it sounds like they had with Vitor's car. Now, you know, when you're going to work in the morning, maybe you can contend with that and then take it into the shop to get fixed. But when you're going 200 miles an hour, Marty, it could certainly make for an uneasy day. And it seemed like he was going to try and live with it, but he got caught out by this situation.
You're looking at the battle for third and fourth, Tony Kanaan and Dan Weldon. But meanwhile, it looks like the guy who is out in front in the clean air is able to pull away because Scott Dixon has now opened a 7/10 of a second lead over Elio Castroneves. Now remember, it was Scott Dixon who won our first race of the year back at Homestead, Miami. That too was a 1.5 mile oval.
So just past the midway point of the Indy Japan 300, and Scott Dixon has taken the lead from Elio Castroneves, who has led most of the race. But Dixon now is in first, Castroneves second, Tony Kanaan third, just over a second behind the leader. And Weldon is 1.7 seconds back. Danica Patrick has moved up to fifth. She started in the sixth position. And this is Vitor Muto, Hideki Muto. Vitor Meira is out of the race, but Hideki Muto is enjoying a homecoming here. His first ever Motegi start. He finished sixth in St. Petersburg, as we mentioned, and a lot of the race fans here at the Motegi Twin Ring today are certainly behind this man. And right now, Muto, the rookie, and one of two rookies among the 18 today, is currently 11th, and he is just about 17 seconds behind the leader, Scott Dixon. So weather holding up. The track has been solid throughout, and 107 laps in. We've had 3 caution flags. Ed Carpenter fell back from 8th to 12th, and that's where Carpenter now stands 10th as we send you back to Japan.
Let's talk a little NASCAR on ESPN Sunday. It is the Nationwide Series. The 2.5-mile road course at Mexico City is the site. It's presented by Kawasaki. Sunday afternoon coverage begins with NASCAR Countdown at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Back here at Twin Ring Motegi, it is Scott Dixon out by a second in front of Elio Castroneves and Tony Kanaan by a second and a half. And you saw something during the break on Kanaan's car, or actually heard it?
Well, it seemed like he was struggling with the car through the middle of the turn. He was up and down the throttle. That's very uncharacteristic for Tony Kanaan because usually he's very smooth. Now, as we go through turns 1 and 2, he's hard on the gas, and we'll have to listen when we head down towards 3 and 4 next time. Remember, he has some onboard adjustments that he can make. That's a long time off the gas compared to where he was before, but as the car continues to run, he might make some adjustments and improve that.
Let's check in with Jack Arute.
Scott, you're going to like this comment. I checked in with George Klutz, who calls the shots for Tony Kanaan. I said, is everything okay? And he said, why? He says, well, we heard kind of a different sound. And he just looked at me and he goes, we're fine, we're fine.
Well, somebody that's not fine was Danica Patrick there for a second. She was about ready to come down to her line, Marty, and got surprised.
Yeah, that was Ryan Briscoe that just flew around her, and now you've got lap traffic around both of them. They clear and continue on. that was Jay Howard in the 24 that was the lap vehicle. So now put Briscoe up to 5th, move Danica back to 6th. Don't know exactly what happened to her. It looked like she got up in the gray a little bit, may have had to get out of it.
Well, she turned 187 miles an hour that last lap, and most of the people are running 194. I've been watching the screen, and all the drivers in the top 10 that are on the same lap have been turning consistently all at 194 miles an hour, Marty. So all the cars seem to be very consistent and very much in touch with each other. Nobody seems to be running away with this.
Jack, you've got more on Danica?
Car. Remember, she's been chasing that tight condition with a little looseness going in. Well, that last pit stop, they did add a little front wing. She likes the car much better. As far as what happened with that close confrontation with Ryan Briscoe, well, let's just say that it was not made for TV radio transmission.
And Jack, while you were finishing up, we saw from our high camera shot that AJ Foyt IV had white-walled the right side tires. There you can see it right there. And he is out of this race as they've got damage. He's out of the cockpit. So one of the two Vision cars is done with their chance of winning. And meanwhile, the battle up front is not much of a battle at all because Scott Dixon has now opened a 1.1 second lead over Helio Castroneves, Tony Kanaan, Dan Weldon, and Ryan Briscoe. That's your top 5. Going back to the start of the 07 season, that's 20 races. Dixon has now led 15 of them.
And so our 4th driver and car are out of the race. AJ Foyt the 4th dropping out. Vitor Mira earlier made some contact with the wall in lap number 92 and had to shut it down. Right rear suspension problem. So the National Guard Delphi Panther Racing group is out of it. They almost missed pit row on that last caution flag, but then Mira is out of it with the right rear suspension. We mentioned Ed Carpenter, little miscue on pit row, that same stop on lap number 92, and he dropped from 8th to 12th. Right now Carpenter is climbed back up to 10th place, but it is Scott Dixon with the lead, and Helio Castroneves trailing. He's 1.2 seconds. Castroneves 1.2 seconds back. Tony Kanaan, Weldon, and Briscoe wrapping up the top 5. Danica Patrick right now is running 6th. She started in the 6th position, and that's where she is right now, is 6th overall. 117 laps of the 283 to go. We've had 3 cautions for about 20 laps so far in this one as we get set to go back to Japan. And more from Marty Reed and Scott Goodyear.
Welcome back to the Firestone IndyCar 300 at Japan. Let's talk about the motorsports calendar on ESPN tomorrow. It's the American Le Mans Series from Long Beach, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. Nationwide Series at Mexico City at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And then the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. And if you're interested, how about showing you the top 5 qualifiers from today's session here at Long Beach, where Scott and I are broadcasting from. It's Justin Wilson, Alex Tagliani in a great run, Frank Pereira, Will Power, and Paul Tracy. It's going to be a great race. That field is very, very tight. And as we go back trackside here, it is Scott Dixon, Helio Castroneves, Tony Kanaan, your top 3, and Dixon in control. Let's check in once again with Jack Arute.
Well, Marty, we caught up with AJ Foyt the 4th. AJ, things were going pretty good. Then you went a lap down, and then all of a sudden, well, it all just fell right out of the basket. What happened?
Yeah, it was going fine. We lost a lap in the pits. We had a great car running behind the leaders there for a little bit, but then we came in here and had contact with Ed. Miscommunication, went to leave the pit box, so then I went out there all pissed off and just pancaked the wall. Just disappointed right now, and know we had a good car to finish in a good place this weekend.
Where was that anger that ended up putting you up out of the car? Was it out of the race? Was that because of the fact that you clipped Ed, or that Ed clipped you?
No, well, Ed was coming in, and my right front guy told me to go. We were just going to do a splash and go and try to get out in front of the leaders and get our lap back. But, you know, Ed was obviously coming in his pit box, so screwed our day up.
Guys, it never ceases to amaze me, and Scott, you did it for so many years, how when you make a mistake, it can come back and bite you if you get emotional in a race car.
That's the first time he sounded like grandfather.
You know, that's why I meant the emotion I did when you and I looked at each other when he said that. But, you know, you have to departmentize all these things that go on. And if something happens on the track or if it actually happens in the pit lane, you need to just put that away and close the door in that room and get on to something else, because it won't do you any good. And, you know, there's no places for grudges, and there's no places for holding anything inside you when you get back on the racetrack. And not that he has a grudge against his teammate, but sometimes that happens in motor racing. It's one of those things.
Well, remember last year when Tony Kanaan and Danica Patrick, there's Kanaan, you're on board with him right now. You see the battle for third that's going on. Remember when he got on the radio, he was so mad, if that ever happens again, I'm not going to run for this team ever again.
And your emotions have to be in check, and that's what AJ the Fourth had to do when he left, because otherwise he took it onto the racetrack as he did, and you can't do that at 205 or 210 miles an hour.
You know, the thing I noticed, I keep watching Elio coming out of that last corner. He takes a different line than Tony Kanaan.
Comes out of the turn and then heads down to the low side, and he did that a lot last year also, and he can do it coming off turns 1 and 2 because it is a larger arc than turns 3 and 4. And 3 and 4, it's a little bit more difficult because of the tightness of the turn, but sometimes you scrub off speed when you do that. But it's very interesting to see that he's able to do that, and maybe he's getting ready for that run at the end when you want to protect the low line when you get down to those laps, 10 or 15 laps.
And that will be dramatic for sure, because we have had some good finishes here in the past. We've also had some fuel economy runs in the 6-year history of this event. Right now, it is Scott Dixon has opened up a 3-second lead over Helio Castroneves.
And so Scott Dixon, who is second in the points race after 2 races here in Indy Japan 300, has the lead. He was trailing Helio Castroneves when the race began. Now he has the lead. Tony Kanaan is 3rd, Weldon 4th, Briscoe is 5th. And it was interesting, after the practice runs that Tony Kanaan made, overall he felt pretty good. Ran a full day and not quite happy with the balance of his car when the practice session ends, and that was 2 days before the race was scheduled to go, and that was yesterday. But all that rain, and it was something of a precursor to what was going to happen in turn 4, because Tony Kanaan was having problems on turn 4 trying to make that car take that turn better. Turns 3 and 4 were the key, he thought, to having a balanced car for the race. So that's where his team went back. The 711 Dallara Honda Firestone, they had the fastest run of the day in the practice runs, and then Kanaan got the balance together, and so far working out pretty well. He is 3rd as we head back, lap 129 of 200.
You're looking at the race leader at Twin Ring Motegi. That is Scott Dixon. Hideki Muto is right in front of him. Muto is already 1 lap down. We have 10 cars shown on the lead lap right now as we're working lap 131 of 200. And you saw there where Dixon has never won here. In fact, his best finish was 4th last season. But right now, he has opened up the biggest margin of the race. There have only been 2 leaders, a total of 3 lead changes. And it's the 2 leaders have been Helio Castroneves for 92 laps and Scott Dixon for 37. All right, we're getting close to that second round of pit stops. Let's check in on the strategy from Japan with Jack Arute.
Here's where it really gets interesting with tacticians. For Mike Hall and his crew, for the leader, Scott Dixon, they have calculated that they are 2 gallons short of being able to come in and pit around lap 144 and be able to finish this race. So they are now discussing the possibility and the probability that Scott Dixon, under this next pit stop, if it is under green, will take a splash of fuel and try and catch up on the back end. This is going to be interesting. Mike Hall counseled his driver and said, look, we're going to try and go a little differently. and let the rest of the teams hopefully take a full tank, and then we'll take our full tank later in the race. It won't take as much time. This is when you begin to turn your cards that are face down, face up, one at a time.
What do you think of that strategy?
Well, you know, he knows the game, he understands it very well, and there's such a pack of racing going on right now for second, third, fourth, and fifth, that I think what they're going to try and do is try and keep themselves separate on the racetrack to this gaggle of cars. It actually seems like they can't get away from each other.
Yeah, this is some of the best action on the track, and there you see on the high side, there is Tony Kanaan. Can he make it stick? No. Again, he has to back out of it.
And you know, I mentioned before, it didn't sound like he could keep on the throttle mid-turn before, and I do not think that his car's handling is as good as it was the first segment right now, because he cannot keep the speed up mid-turn.
And look at it costs him, because the 10 of Dan Weldon gets underneath him. That is for position as well, and now he's up in the gray. He's going to lose another spot. So all of a sudden, Tony Kanaan drops 2 positions here on lap 135. We've got to take a break because we're about 8 laps from the second round of pit stops. We want to get this done so we won't miss that. Stay with us. We'll find out what happened to Tony Kanaan.
So Tony Kanaan suddenly dropping back to 5th on the day, dropping 2 spots back, lap 134 of the 200. As we continue from Japan, a place that had an earthquake not too long ago, Thursday morning, and then tremendous rains on Friday, which forced a postponement to the Saturday start. And right now, Scott Dixon has the advantage, driving the number 9 of the Chip Ganassi Racing. Let's take a ride around now with Tony Kanaan. .138 laps of the 200. And we're getting close to the next pit stop. We've had 3 cautions so far for a total of 20 laps. We send you back to Japan.
That's Scott Dixon, your race leader. The car right in front of him is Hideki Muto. And the reason we want to give him a little shout is because he's already won. There he is, right at the bottom of your screen. He's 1 lap down, soon to be 2. Except one problem. He's actually turning laps as fast or faster than our race leader at 194 and change.
Well, he wants to keep in front of Dixon, obviously, in the hopes of getting his lap back, if that's at all possible, through some strategy. Now, in this situation, because he's down a lap, he's just going to keep his foot pedal to the metal, as they call it. And it's disappointing when you're a lap down and you know you have a fast race car, but just that mistake leaving the pit lane has cost him that lap that he's lost.
Jack, you've got more?
Yeah, there are no secrets. Everybody, at least one member of each team, monitors the onboard radios for these cars. My call is just radioed to Scott Dixon, your leader, that they will pit in 3 laps. Guess who was one of the first to get radioed that same information? Hideki Muto. He just needs to stay out. We're about ready for another sequence of pit stops, guys.
And we get word that the 17 of Ryan Hunter-Reay peels off from his 8th position. There he is, getting a 4-tire change and a fresh load of ethanol as he'll get back out to the battle. They're waiting for the fuel, getting every ounce. Whoa, wait a minute. Problem, they put him back up, back down. That's costly.
Whatever the miscue is on that, that's 3 or 4 extra seconds, and tough to make up on the racetrack in that type of situation.
That's Townsend Bell at the top of your screen, and Darren Manning coming in with the 14 car, so those 2. And now we get a caution again as Roger Yasukawa is into the wall. Not a lot of severe damage, but that's right on the front stretch. So those teams can continue their pit work, but the pit lane will be closed. And again, it comes right at a time when we would have seen green flag pit stops for everybody.
Well, in this situation right now, if Dixon was going to take a light load underneath green, you can rest assured that they will take a full load underneath this yellow, so that will maybe change their strategy. With Roger Yasukawa, it doesn't look like there's a lot of damage there, but the skid marks leading up to where his car is stopped makes it look like he just lost it coming out of 4 and was lucky not to collect the wall.
So fuel strategy is basically out the window again, because everybody is going to be topping off, getting 4 fresh tires, and reloading.
And the light that you saw that was flashing, that is the pit closed light, and all the drivers see that, and they know that they cannot come into pit lane once that light is flashing.
Jack has caught up with Mike Hull.
Mike, we know that you were right on the cusp of maybe being able to play some games near the end of the race. What does this caution do to your thought process now?
Well, everybody's going to have to stop again, so we'll just see what the games provide us toward the end of the race.
The pits are open. He needs to go back to work, so we don't want to bother him. Fellas, by my calculations, it depends on how long this caution is. If they watch for anybody that maybe wants to lay out there a little longer than possible. 150 is that magic mark. I'm going to watch your leader and see if he takes a full load. I agree with you, Scott. I think he should, and then take the gas and go at the end.
Well, and the thing is, as they get ready to come down your way, the farthest run we've seen has been 51 laps by Hideki Muto. Here we are on lap 143. Do the math. Nobody can make it from here. Let's send it back to Jack.
At the front of the grid is Scott Dixon, his teammate Dan Weldon. They come in formation and pull onto the pits. It'll be an exchange of the Firestone Firehawk tires. Checking both fuel loads to see if they take a full load. Yes, they are staying. They're bringing the first car out. Scott Dixon, followed by a gaggle, along with Kanaan, Team Penske, and Dan Weldon, his teammate.
And the second one out was the 6th of Ryan Briscoe, and he picks up a couple of spots. You're on board with Tony Kanaan, and there is Danica Patrick.
So when Briscoe comes in a little bit further back in the queue and he can come out a little bit further ahead, it makes you wonder if they put in as much fuel, knowing they do probably have to stop and just take a little bit shorter fuel run, and gives you a couple positions on track position.
There is Ed Carpenter right behind Danica, so our race leader will continue to be Scott Dixon. And right behind him is now Ryan Briscoe. So we'll sort it all out. As you see, we are under our 4th caution here at Twin Ring.
Yesterday, of course, the postponement with the track turn number 4 having all kinds of water issues. They had to pump out 10,000 gallons of water, so that caused a postponement yesterday, and the race beginning today. 148 laps in the books, so 52 laps to go. And right now, Dixon with the lead, Briscoe second, Kanaan third, Weldon 4th, Castroneves is 5th, Danica Patrick is 6th. And Carpenter's getting back into the thick of it. 7 right now, just over 4 seconds behind the leaders. Scott Dixon back to Japan.
Back at Twin Ring Motegi, we're under our 4th caution and just past the bottom of the hour. It's the Firestone IndyCar 300. Glad that you're with us. And we've had some shakeups here in pit lane as some late-minute pit stops, as there are several. In fact, it's Danica Patrick, Ed Carpenter, and the 3 of Elio Castroneves. Let's send it to Jack Arute.
Watch Danica Patrick. They made a decision to try and top off the field, as does the Team Vision car and Elio Castroneves. These cars pack the fuel in. Now, by my calculations, that will put them precariously close to being able to go the distance, guys. Remember, under caution, you're able to make almost 2.5 times the fuel mileage, so that means about 12 to 13 miles to the gallon. This one's going to come right down to the white flag. Wouldn't surprise me if one car sputters, minus about 2 ounces of ethanol.
Well, and you're right, Jack. Remember, we did point it out that the Hideki Muto went 51 laps. That's the farthest we've seen anybody go with a tank of ethanol here at Twin Ring Motegi. When we get ready to go back to green, which will be in one lap, it will be Scott Dixon, Ryan Briscoe, Tony Kanaan, Dan Weldon, and then it looks like they're showing Danica Patrick in 5th, Ed Carpenter in 6th, Elio Castroneves in 7th.
I like that strategy. You know, something that goes green all the way to the end. We just might see Danica Patrick standing on the podium and maybe in the middle.
Especially Elio. Remember, he was the big loser in the pit stop battle. He came out in 5th, and now he gets a top off on the fuel and really only gave up 2 more spots.
You know, and in this situation right now, if the car is going to work well for you, and these guys have been running so close together anyways, you're not going to lose touch with them.
We're going to be green with 49 laps to go. Will one of those 3 that topped off be the winner? We'll find out. Dixon pulls away again. And look at Carpenter looking to go underneath Danica Patrick. And here comes Elio. He makes easy work of it.
Well, you know, we talked about Danica sometimes not being so strong on restarts, but previously today she had a couple of great ones. That one, not so much so, but you can be conservative on fuel, but you have to stay in touch with the lead pack, and she's not doing that now.
So there you see that there is a bit of a gap now. Back to Danica. She's at the top of your screen. Meanwhile, Dixon is already in 1 lap, opened up an 0.8 of a second lead. I think they got the wick turned up on the number 9 car.
Well, he wants to get out in front, probably turn the fuel back, try to conserve just a little bit. And Kanaan takes a nice run underneath Briscoe, but can't get it done again.
Let's watch his hands, see what happens through there. Maybe we can get that shot again from our host broadcasters. The battle right there with Briscoe and Kanaan. And Jack, you got more?
Yeah, forgive Tony Kanaan if he tries to do the parry and thrust on the Ryan Briscoe car. You see, Tony Kanaan has been given the green light to use as much fuel as he wants. They are nowhere near close to being able to go the distance. They just radioed TK that he's going to have to pit with 6 laps to go regardless, and then they cap that with, just go, Daddy, go.
And see, that's the same situation that Dixon's in, and in fact all these cars, except for the 3 that stopped right before we went back to green flag racing.
Now Danica is keeping pace with the cars in front, although there's that bit of a gap that she lost from the restart. One makes you think whether she could be a little bit closer to try to be able to get a little bit of a draft off the cars in front to sort of conserve some fuel.
Well, let's find out from Jack. Does she have a problem, or she got the wick turned back?
Well, she has the wick turned back, and it basically was a mistake by Danica Patrick on that restart. Scott, you called it good from the booth there, and what she did is she radioed her crew very calmly and said, hey guys, sorry about that. Now she's settled in to ethanol conservation mode.
All right, so you see the update on Danica, and meanwhile, you look at Tony Kanaan as he is in 2nd place by 1.5 seconds, and here comes, that looks like Elio Castroneves, or no, Ryan Briscoe, I should say, in the 6th car, going underneath and around Dan Weldon. So move Briscoe up to 3rd, bump Weldon back to 4th. Ed Carpenter trying to fight his way into the screen, and the yellow Menards car. He is in 5th, so they are only 2 spots away from their goal for Vision Racing.
Remember how strong Vision Racing was at Miami, qualifying up the front, had a problem with the rear wing in post-qualifying inspection. The cars went to the back of the grid, and lo and behold, both the cars were strong in the race. Now, this team is known as an oval racing team. Maybe their drivers are not great on road courses, so maybe you didn't expect that much out of them at St. Petersburg, but this team is just continuing to get stronger each and every year, and I think a podium, if not this weekend, is going to be very much in the future for these guys here on the Vision Racing team.
Well, Carpenter running in 5th, and that's exactly where he finished in the season opener at Homestead, Miami. Jackaroo?
Guys, I talked to Ed Carpenter just before the start of this race, and I asked him what the difference is, why this team is much better as we watch one car peel off, and that is the Hideki Motu coming onto pit road. And he said it's being consistent. He said over the course of the last 2 years, he has concentrated on that. When you take a look at the laps that he's turned in today, consistency has indeed been his forte.
And as you watch his hands, Marty, his car is handling very well because he's not turning the steering wheel all that much compared to what we saw on Tony Kanaan's car. I mean, watch his right hand. It's somewhere up around the 1 to 2 o'clock area. Remember, Tony Kanaan seemed to be struggling mid-turn, and his right hand was getting all the way up towards the top about the 12 o'clock area on the clock, and that seemed like a car that was not working all that well for him.
While all this was going on, Ryan Hunter-Reay got around Danica Patrick. Hunter-Reay now in 7th. Danica falls back to 8th. Meanwhile, up front, Scott Dixon with the wick turned up full force is 1 second ahead of Tony Kanaan and 1.2 seconds ahead of Ryan Briscoe. As we move on a little further back, there is Ryan Hunter-Reay. And Ryan, as we said, he is 4 seconds behind the race leader right now. And his turning laps, he is the fastest car on the racetrack at 196 miles an hour. That's a mile and a half faster than our race leader the last lap.
Ryan Hunter-Reay is a guy that just consistently works hard. He puts his nose to the grindstone, very focused when you talk to him, very fit, and is eager to do a great job here. He's got this chance with the Ray Hall Letterman team and knows that he has to make the most of it.
What's interesting is Helio Castroneves is not moving forward. Remember, this is the guy that's led 92 laps here at this race, and he's about to possibly get past, maybe even on the high side. Nope. Ryan says, no, I don't think I like it up there.
I think it's fuel conservation.
Could very well be. Let's check in with Jackaroo.
Helio Castroneves is one of the cars that is running in what we call slot 4. He has just been instructed by Tim Cindric to make fuel, to try and conserve ethanol. So this is going to be an economy run for a lot of drivers. Ditto for Scott Dixon as well. He's been given the go-to as well to make ethanol. This one's going to be a dandy one down to the last couple of laps, fellas.
Oh, wait a minute. So if they've changed strategy after running all those laps at full throttle, now you're going to dial it back? I still don't. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. Remember what happened to him at Chicago last year? Ran out of fuel on the last corner of the last lap, and it cost him the championship. We're going to take a short break. There is your top 5 after 163 of 200 here at Twin Ring.
So it's always going to be about fuel conservation and trying to limit consumption if you can, and trying to make it to the very, very last lap to try to win this race. Helio Castroneves, the number 3 car, can go the distance. So can Danica Patrick. So can Ed Carpenter after topping off their last trip into pit row. Tony Kanaan, though, is going to need fuel probably with about 6 laps to go. So it's going to be a problem for him. Kanaan is 2nd right now. Dixon, Scott Dixon in car number 9 is 1st, and they are being followed by Briscoe, who started way back in row 8, position number 15. Ryan Briscoe's had a good run at it. He is 3rd right now. Running 4th is Dan Weldon, who started in row 3, position number 5. He's back in it, and he is just under 2 seconds behind the leader. Helio Castroneves has dropped back to 7th. He led this race for 92 laps, but again, he should be able to reach the final lap and the finish line without making another pit stop. 34 laps to go here in Motegi Twin Ring in Japan. We send you back now for more of our coverage.
Coming up Sunday, it's the American Le Mans Series at Long Beach, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on ABC. The rest of our weekend calendar, NASCAR Nationwide Series at Mexico, Sunday 1:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN, and then the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, 5:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Here at Twin Ring Motegi, we can tell you during the break, Dan Weldon got around Ryan Briscoe and left him. And I'm wondering now if Briscoe has turned the wick back a little bit, because here comes the 20 of Ed Carpenter, and Ryan Hunter-Reay, he has got to be on full tilt boogie. There is Briscoe, but Hunter-Reay is about ready to get past Ed Carpenter. There he is. Great camera work, guys, zooming in on it. And here comes Ryan underneath the 20. Yo, that's close!
Close at 200 miles an hour.
I think we better check to see if the Firestone logo is still on those tires. that was extremely close. With 30 laps remaining, Ryan Hunter-Reay is now moved up into the top 5.
You know, and I don't think that Ryan Hunter-Reay can make it on fuel mileage, so he's probably just going as fast as he can because he knows he has to make one more stop. Carpenter came in, remember, and splashed fuel along with Danica Patrick and Elio Castroneves. So those are the ones that are probably trying to run just a little bit more conservative on fuel. And we see Carpenter right there in the Menards car, and then just behind him is Elio Castroneves. And I would gotta say that those are the guys that are just trying to trim back, as we heard before, and trying to make some fuel mileage. And you can see Castroneves is right behind him, and as we know, he's affectionately known as Twinkle Toes by everybody else that's here in the paddock area from his win on Dancing with the Stars.
You mentioned pits. Let's give you the numbers. Ryan Hunter-Reay stopped 31 laps ago, now 32 as he goes by the stripe. Then it's 28 for our top 4 of Dixon, Kanaan, Weldon, and Briscoe. Then it's 23 laps ago for those 3 that we talked about, Carpenter, Castroneves, and Danica Patrick. So that gives you the fuel loads for each of the cars. Here are 2 of them that stopped 28 laps ago. And Dan Weldon is on the charge. He has gotten around Tony Kanaan. So move Weldon to second behind his teammate of Scott Dixon. And there is Ryan Briscoe looking like he wants to get around Kanaan as well. Tony's having none of it. We go on board.
Through 3 and 4, now getting back on the throttle. Remember, if they do have to come into the pit lane, it's going to be for a splash and go. No tires, no adjustments on tire pressures, and probably no wing changes. So whatever they have, what kind of car is handling around the racetrack at both ends right now is probably what they're going to have until the end of the race.
10 cars on the lead lap. Scott Dixon has a second lead over his teammate Dan Weldon. What's the latest on strategy, Jackaroot?
Well, Dan Weldon is badly needed in terms of helping Scott Dixon. Dixon is finding himself now, get this, 3 laps short of being able to go the distance. He, in essence, fellas, needs 1 caution lap, and they could go the distance. Things could change, though, if Weldon can catch him and they can hook up in a 2-car tango and maybe try to make a little fuel that way.
But Briscoe has fallen back to 7th spot, and we'll be able to show you why, because he gets it high coming out of turn number 4. With 20 laps remaining, a costly error, as here comes the replay we'll be able to show you.
Number 3 and 4 is the tight turn out of this Motegi track, 1 and 2 being wide open. And here he is on the high side of Ryan Hunter-Reay, just creeping the car up into the gray. No traction there. You get on the marbles and just scrubs the softer barrier a small amount and probably didn't do any damage to the car. So he lives to continue on. And here he goes. Remember, this is a feeling where you feel like you're driving on ice. The car's slowly going towards the wall. Been there, done that myself, and it's not a great feeling, Marty.
And you're looking towards the front of the field. And that is one of the Target Ganassi cars going around Hideki Muto. Muto is 2 laps down. There is Ryan Hunter-Reay closing in on Tony Kanaan. That's the battle we want to show you, because Ryan is now up to 4th and challenging for 3rd as the laps continue to wind down. The question is, who has fuel? Ryan is going to have to stop. We know that for a fact. It's been 43 laps since he was into pit lane. He's just trying to get as much ground as he can. There's Ed Carpenter coming up behind him. Car on the bottom, the red and blue, that's Hideki Muto. As we said, he's a couple of laps down. While all this is going on, let's get back to the front. It is Scott Dixon by 0.8 of a second over his teammate Dan Weldon. Then Tony Kanaan 3rd, Ryan Hunter-Reay 4th, and Ed Carpenter 5th. Our Firestone lap leaders, we've only had 2, Elio Castroneves and Scott Dixon. And Dixon's about to take the overall lap lead count here with 16 to go next time by. The question we're all waiting for, Scott, is who blinks first and has to come to pit lane?
Well, I believe lot of those guys absolutely have to come into pit lane, but the ones that we're watching is Carpenter, who's in 5th, and Castronevic, who is in 6th. Those guys pitted 36 laps ago. Everybody else was 41, 42 laps ago. So that's going to be the true tell right now, is to see how many mileage those guys can make, simply from the fact that they're going to have to pedal back, reduce their speed, but they're still running speeds that are close to Dixon and Weldon, who are running up front.
Remember, it is Ed Carpenter in that yellow number 20, Danica Patrick and Elio Castroneves that pitted latest of all the lead cars on the lead lap. Meanwhile, everybody's gone back up in speed. During the commercial break, we saw some laps at the 190-mile-an-hour range, and nobody wanted to pass anybody. All of a sudden, they're all back at 194 and change.
I think that was in the hope of trying to make some fuel mileage for a few laps to see if they had any chance of making it to the end. They probably got word to say there's not any case of any of those guys up front, in my belief, that it can actually make it all the way through the end without at least one more stop.
Well, there is Tony Kanaan right now in 3rd place, a full 2 seconds behind our race leader of Scott Dixon. Now, Dixon, Weldon, and Kanaan, the top 3, all pitted 43 laps ago. The most we've seen any car go this race is 51. The math still doesn't add up.
You know what's important right now also is that once they get the call to come into the pit lane, there's a lot of pressure on the drivers to have a very fast in-lap. That means to come into the pit lane as quickly as possible on the apron, get into your pit box. The pressure is on the crew to just get the car fueled and then send the car off as fast as possible. The pressure then returns to the driver to get back up to speed as fast as possible. And that's what's going to happen here in the next few laps. So the drivers are going to try and stretch a lead out from the car behind. So watch Mike Hall, who's a strategist for Target Chip Ganassi, looking on board, and he sits there. He knows what's going on. He's playing a game in his mind right now, and it's going to be interesting to see who can put all the pieces of the puzzle together, because the speeds are so even here right now. It might just come down to track position after the pit stop.
This time by, it'll be 11 laps to go, and we're getting word that the 17 of Ryan Hunter-Reay, with 50 laps since his last pit, will be making his stop this time by. So Ryan is going to surrender his top 5 position. There he is. He had made it up to 4th, gave it a great run, but he is the first that has to blink and come in to top off with just enough fuel to get to the finish line. You can see the scroll across the top. It tells you what pit or what lap they last pitted on, but with less than 10 laps to go now, it's just a matter of who blinks next.
And you see the 10 car of Dan Weldon getting closer to the number 9 target machine of Scott Dixon, and what he's going to try and do is just run as hard as he can, try to catch up, hopefully have a better pit stop than his teammate, or maybe have a better in-lap and out-lap. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to bring in both those cars in the same lap, or change the strategy and one comes in on a different lap to give them more space in the pit boxes, Marty.
Jack, you've got more on Ganassi?
Yeah, and Scott Dixon specifically. Mike Hall just had a conversation with Scott Dixon and reminded him that the fuel consumption right now, he compared it to Chicago. Remember Chicago? He came up short to Dario Franchitti. He said, Scott, you're making the same mileage right now as Dario did in Chicago. But then he also added, looks like we're going to have to come in 2 to 3 laps.
Yeah, you saw Townsend Bell, the 23 car. He also came in. And there is Darren Manning. He has come in. So that means 7 cars still on the lead lap. But it looks like a lot of these cars are going to have to pit. The question will be when. Dixon's working lap 50 now since his last pit stop. So is Dan Weldon and Tony Kanaan, the top 3. Then in 4th place, Ed Carpenter has 5 more laps in hand over those guys. So Carpenter could steal this if he can make it stretch. We've got 6 laps to go. There is the number 20 of Ed Carpenter. He has never won an IndyCar, and he's peeling off.
That is a surprise.
Carpenter, who last pitted just 45 laps to go, is into pit lane.
And so remember, he was one of the first ones to come in at the beginning of the race also. They're not making fuel mileage.
So their chance of the podium finish is now over. Jack?
Ed Carpenter pulls down on the pit road. Remember, that's a team that was using a lot of downforce. That means they consumed more ethanol. They were looking for a podium finish, but in the meantime, he takes on that precious fuel, but it will be costly in pursuit of a podium finish. In the meantime, Scott Dixon has been called on the pit road, and following him in will be his teammate in the number 10 car. Dixon. Boy, this is slow. This is agonizing for a driver like Scott Dixon. Remember, it's 100 yards, a football field every second. They connect, and all of a sudden, it is less than for a pit stop. And all of a sudden, Scott Dixon as well.
All right, and the other two are blinking as well. Dan Weldon and Tony Kanaan are in, and it looks like Helio Castroneves. Remember, he came in and topped off with 5 laps to go. It looks like Helio Castroneves is going to inherit the race lead, as there he is with now 4 laps to go. Jack?
Well, as Dan Weldon pulled off Helio Castroneves, has been radioed by Tim Cindric. Only 5 to go. You must make fuel. That's an indication to me, guys. They're going to roll the dice and try and go without pulling onto pit road. This is going to be close.
He is working 48 laps since his last pit stop. There are 3 laps to go this time by. There is second place, Danica Patrick. She too on the same fuel strategy, as with just about 2.5 laps to go. The question is, who's got it? And here she comes. Does she have enough fuel? She's going to take the high side. And Danica Patrick takes the lead at Motegi.
Castroneves must believe that he's not going to make it to the end unless he's throttling back as much as he is. Has she been able to conserve fuel enough to be able to run this pace and make it to the end? That's going to be the interesting fact right now. Remember, we said when these changes went on, will she be on the podium, maybe standing in the middle? This just might be her day. She's run so strong here before.
A lap and a half to go for Danica Patrick. Remember, at the beginning of this run, she fell back. She was saving fuel. Here she comes. The white flag this time by, and nobody within sight. Look at Mom Bev. 1.5 miles to go for Danica Patrick and the Motorola team. Could history be made at Twin Ring Motegi? Down the backstretch for one more time. Does she have enough fuel to get around the final 2 corners? Into turns 3 and 4. Danica Patrick coming out of 4, and boys, move over. The lady is coming through. Danica Patrick wins at Twin Ring Motegi. The celebration in the pit lane. That is Bev Patrick, Michael Andretti, and Jack, you're there.
Pandemonium is broken out. We're trying to get Bev Patrick, and she gets all the congratulations with anybody. It reminds me of Jim Valvano when North Carolina State scored the upset in basketball so many years ago.
Oh my
Bev,
gosh.
describe the feeling.
Oh, finally. We've worked so hard. She's worked so hard. I'm so proud of this team. Kyle is the man. Kyle Breuer did it all right there. Oh, thank God.
This was not a good weekend in terms of practice times and yet yesterday when we spoke, she said, look, I just want people to stop asking me about when I'm going to win.
We finally got the win that everybody's been waiting for, that she's been waiting for more than them. So thank God to the team. That was awesome. Andretti Grill. Rules. Go! Ah!
You know, sometimes, guys, a picture says 1,000 words. That's what we got right here.
An incredible run. You never have to hear it again. When are you going to win your first race? She'll never be called the Anna Kournikova of open wheel racing. And we are going to stay right here until we talk to Danica Patrick, her first win in the IndyCar Series at Twin Ring Motegi. She led 32 laps here back at her first trip, and it got everybody buzzing. And if you remember that year, she went on to lead at the Indianapolis 500, and then it all began. When can you win? When can you win? Well, now Danica Patrick has won.
Danica Patrick, welcome to IndyCar Victory Lane.
Thank you. I feel like I was crying, but it's a long time coming. Finally.
When you take a look at this weekend, and especially in this race, battling an understeer condition.
Congrats, girl. Good job.
Marco Andretti congratulating Danica, understeer, and then all of a sudden, fuel conservation. How tough for you?
I can't say that the last stint was exactly hard. You know, you're taking it easy and taking care of the car. I did feel like at the end I was, you know, that it was fast and that I was managing to save fuel while still keeping the speed up. And I'd heard, you know, from Kyle that, you know, all I need to beat is Elio. So when I saw him, I knew I had been kind of saving a little extra throughout the stint, and that, you know, I knew he was the one to beat, and I didn't want to make the mistake of, you know, not pushing really hard to get by him. So it managed to be a little bit safer probably than I saw. But thank you to Andretti Green. Thank you to, you know, all my teammates, and finally.
You know what? I got to ask you, when are you going to win again?
I hope next weekend.
Guys.
All right, thanks, Jack. And can you sense the weight that is off her shoulders? She handled every question. There's Dad, TJ. He's crying. We saw this scene just 2 weeks ago, a first victory for 19-year-old Graham Rahal, the celebration with his dad, Bobby. And another first just 2 weeks later in Twin Ring Motegi, as the weight of the world is now off Danica Patrick's shoulders. And there is husband Paul. And he is thrilled. He's got a grin from ear to ear. And there is Tony George to come over to congratulate the family. And let's go back to Jackaroo.
Well, we caught up with the family, Patrick. Let's start with TJ, because he's always the most animated one, and we never see him in pit road, but now you've made it to Victory Lane. A long, long time ago, you started with your daughter and talked about go-karting, and I think there's still a place in her new home in the Hospital household for a Borg Warner trophy. But where does this win fit in all the years that you two spent together in motorsports?
This is the best day of my life. I've dreamt about it. I'm just so proud of her. For all the grief she gets over it, I mean, she just proved to everybody she can win races, and she's going to win a lot more.
Danica Patrick is now congratulating each and every one of her crew members. I want to get Paul Hospenthal, her husband, in here for just a second as well. Paul, you've had to be on the sidelines, uncharacteristic for most male husbands, and, you know, kind of be the person that motivates your wife but also tries to take some of the questions that are asked of her. How do you feel right now?
Oh, I'm so happy for her. It's you know, I'm just trying to hold it back myself, Jack. But she's been working hard. She's very patient today. Her team was fantastic. Kyle Moore had a great race. It's great for everybody.
You spend a lot of time in your profession dealing with other professional athletes. In fact, that was a relationship that developed into your eventual courting and marrying of your bride and Danica. How does this accomplishment by a female in motorsports rank with other accomplishments that you've seen in baseball and tennis and in golf?
I mean, I think it's great for anybody. You know, female aside, she's just a hard competitor. She's never asked to be the female in a male sport. She just wants to work hard, and I think with any race car driver coming to the lead and winning like this and showing all the patience today, that's fantastic.
It's going to be a long... Oh, there we go.
Congratulations.
Guys, back to you.
That says it all. Congratulations. Thank you. Her 50th start, Danica Patrick does what no woman has ever done in open wheel racing. She wins. She now moves up to third in the points. Elio leads by 12 over Scott Dixon, by 14 over that lady right there. And as I said, she gets congratulations from Kim Green, one of the team co-owners. Danica climbs into the car that will take her around the track to the cheers of everyone in Japan, and ticket sales, as we mentioned, are going to start jumping at Kansas and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, I guarantee it.
Well, she listed her most memorable achievement was leading the Indianapolis 500. And this just might rank a little higher. I got to say that having a victory has got to be the thing that she's going to remember the most right now. The pressure may be off, but as an athlete and as a driver, she's going to turn around and use this as motivation to go and continue and run strong at Kansas, which she's run strong there before, Marty, so she's got a great opportunity to continue the momentum and do well there. And then on to Indianapolis, which is really the place that made Danica Patrick, and she was the first female to lead laps at the Indianapolis 500 race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So I think without a doubt that she now is on her way to having a lot more confidence every time she sits inside the race car.
Michael Andretti is with Jack Arute.
Michael Andretti, you've had so many moments in motorsports. You've won here. You know what it takes to win at Motegi. Describe what Danica Patrick must be feeling right now.
I don't even know. I mean, I'm so happy for her. I'm so proud of her. It's always been a question of when, not if, when she was going to win. And I'm so proud of her the way she did it. She did a really good job sticking to the numbers and still keeping the speed. And I love this girl. She is just a first-class individual, and I'm so happy for her. I'm so happy now that monkey's off her back, and you'll see there's going to be more of this to come.
You can relate to the monkey on a driver's back. How difficult is it psychologically to hear it week in and week out? And in your case, and in Danica's case now, year in and year out.
Honestly, I'm not even sure it's about the hearing about it. I think it's more herself, She wanted to win so bad. She's such a competitor, and I think it's more the monkey off her back for herself, and not everybody else. And that's the type of individual she is. And I think now that it's off, you're going to see a different person. And I think this is the first, like I said, of many more.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.
Michael Andretti won at Twin Ring Motegi in 2000. In 2008, it's that lady right there, Danica Patrick, making history for the second race in a row in the IndyCar Series. Is this the kind of year we're going to have? This is going to be pretty exciting. And we're going to make history again on tomorrow here at Long Beach, where you and I are getting ready for the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Jack, hopefully he's going to make it. He's got a helicopter flight from here, or from there, to Narita Airport, then a flight across the ocean, and another helicopter flight from LAX to Long Beach.
Watching the interview with Michael Andretti, I have to remember that when he hired Danica Patrick, a lot of people said, why? There's so many great drivers out there. Why are you taking a chance on somebody that seems to have a lot of hype attached to her, but we don't know if she has the ability? And he said, because I think that she needs a team that surrounds her, that can support her. And there's no doubt having 3 teammates now versus 1 certainly is a situation I think that she's taken a great benefit from. And just the experience that it's at Team Andretti Green, I think has really paid dividends for her. And having the teachers that she did with Dario Franchitti last year, with Tony Cadon this year, has given her confidence not only in driving to ask questions, but also in car setup. It's given her the confidence when maybe the cars weren't the best underneath her. And it's something on a team, Marty, that if you're out there driving and you have a question with the car and you wonder if it's you or the car, but your teammate's doing it and you got the same car, then you know you need to dig down inside and find out something else to do yourself. And I think she's done that. She's put all the pieces of the puzzle together. As her husband Paul said, she has been patient, but she knows now that she can do it. And the belief of Michael Andretti, when he hired her, said she will win someday, and she's going to win driving one of my cars.
Look at that. Need anything be said? Just an incredible moment, and you're along for the ride with Danica Patrick. Can you imagine how many young girls are watching? Obviously, back on the East Coast, it's going to be late, but they'll see it on Sports Center, and they'll see replays of this race. I would imagine that this could become one of those ESPN instant classics, and they're going to dream of maybe one day following in her footsteps.
Well, you know something? My young son, Michael, is just starting to do some go-karting, and I've been away from the go-kart track for over 20 years, did it myself, but now returning to that, I can think there was maybe 1 or 2 girls that raced go-karts in all of the United States when I was doing it. Well, there must be 10 or 12 at each individual track you go to, from what I hear now, and the track that we race at, the same situation, because I think that girls are now accepted in the sport, and the heights of Sarah Fisher and Danica Patrick in the most recent, I think has helped help that?
Well, females obviously have been extremely successful in drag racing. Of course, Shirley Muldowney led the way in the straight liners, and obviously Ashley Force is getting a lot of attention now. Melanie Troxel as well. Look at this young girl. Could she be a Danica Patrick someday? And the fans in Japan, the corner workers there, the salute as they realize also history being made in Japan by Danica Patrick winning her first race. And I'm not sure if she still doesn't believe it.
Oh, it will set in on the train, on the plane ride home, and it'll be something that she'll wake up tomorrow morning and go, I can't believe it.
Well, she got a lot of press coverage all along throughout her career. Can you imagine what the crush is going to be like when she gets back in the States?
Can you imagine the crush at the Indianapolis 500?
Oh.
You're there for 3.5 weeks, and right now she's just taking it all, and that's a great shot.
The final 2 laps, she was able to overtake the leader Elio Castroneves and win it. He had the lead with 3 laps to go. Danica Patrick overtook him. Castroneves still leads the point race. Dixon is second after his third place finish here, but Danica Patrick jumps up now to third in the points race, 14 points behind Elio Castroneves. But more importantly, the first woman ever to win an event in open wheel racing history. Her 50th start. Her career began in 2005. She actually led this race for 32 laps while driving for Ray Hall Letterman Racing. Has finished in all 3 of her previous starts here at the track. She finishes first this time, though, in the year 2008. April 20th, history made in open wheel racing by Danica Patrick, the Ohio native. And that's the trophy she will take home. Somehow it'll be shipped in a very large package. And as she was saying, a tremendous sense of relief. Obviously, she's something special. A woman racing at this level, world class, against the best in the world, had never won. And everyone wondered if that would ever happen. And she answered the question here today, and there is a sense of great relief for her and great triumph, because now she won't have to answer that question any longer. The lady comes in first. Danica Patrick in Japan wins the Indy Japan 300, delayed by a day of rain, but she finishes on top of the podium at Twin Ring Montegi, and a victory that will be remembered forever. Those tickets will be held in special places for the ticket holders in Japan.
So they finally got the race away in Japan. Now the teams will be rushing back to America for next week's Kansas Lottery 300. You'll be able to see that race in a great American motorsport doubleheader next weekend here on Sky Sports. We'll start with Aaron's 499 from Talladega Speedway in Alabama at 7 p.m. on Sky Sports 2, immediately followed by that Kansas race. So that's it for today. Goodbye. See you next week.
More sport, news and views at skysports.com.